Welcome to the Fantasy Boardroom. Merry Christmas, you filthy animals. It is almost time, and the NFL is ready to be a willing and heavy participant in the Christmas holiday this year. So, we will just get right to it. Don't want to end up in a situation like last week where I wasn't able to get through all the games. Hopefully, we are able to get through them, but if anybody has any questions, anything to talk about as we head into these playoff matchups, I assume if you're still watching, that means you either had a bye or you were able to survive your first round. Congratulations. Oh, we are moving on. We are ready to chase these ships. Oh, baby. So let's make sure we get these decisions right. Put the best lineups out there possible so that we can advance to the finals. We're in the Final Four already. It's so close. We can taste it. It's right there for us. It's right there. We make the right decisions. We can take down our leagues. And we need some good injury luck, too, this year. That is a major, major factor. Hopefully, none of your studs have been unavailable. One league. Sunday morning, finding out both Tyreek and Olave would not go sealed my fate. So hopefully there's not a similar situation that happens for me elsewhere or for any of you. And we start tomorrow with the Saints coming into town here in stormy Southern California, where I'm currently located, to take on the Rams. The Rams are pretty heavy favorites here, minus 205 on the money line, 4-point favorites on the spread. The Saints are plus 170 underdogs, and over under a 46, so points are expected to be scored here, and I certainly agree. Stafford, Kyron Williams, Cooper Kupp, Puka Nacua, that offense is rolling. The Saints defense is decent, but going up against a Rams team that will be at home will be a big challenge for them. And on the flip side, the Rams defense, while there are some young and talented pieces over there along with Aaron Donald, it's still a unit that leaves a lot to be desired. With Olave returning for the Saints, I expect a decent day offensively for New Orleans as well. Kamara, Olave, happy to roll them out there. So fantasy-wise, Matthew Stafford, low-end QB1, high-end QB2 is where I'd have him. So, you might be desperate. Now maybe you're missing Stroud again. Shoot, you might not have a choice. So Stafford is certainly a viable fill-in if you don't have an elite QB that carried you here into the Final Four. Kyron Williams, absolute must start at running back every week, no question there. And I would start both Cooper Kupp and Puka Nacua this week, as would be the case most weeks. On the New Orleans side, Derek Carr, no. Alvin Kamara, hell yes. Chris Olave, hell yes. If you need to hit a sneaky home run, I like Rashid Shaheed this week. I would still start Taysom Hill if you don't have one of the top 6-7 dudes at tight end, Kelsey, Kittle, Ingram, Njoku, Laporta, McBride. If you don't have one of those guys, I'm still very much okay with using Taysom Hill. What up, Anthony? Welcome, sir. Happy to have you in the boardroom. Just getting ready for the playoffs, baby. We've got a best ball matchup this week, you and I. So no decisions to make there, though. That's the plus side, excuse me, of best ball. We'll get the best. Hope just who we drafted hits. And yeah, so that's kind of where I leave it with the Saints is Kamara, Olave, absolute must starts. Taysom if you don't have one of those top 6-7 tight ends, and then Rashid Shaheed, sneaky sleeper, big play, possible home run hitter. If you need a little extra juice in your lineup, you think, to advance against possibly a stacked opponent. Hey, we're in the Final Four. We're in the semifinals here. There are good teams that we are facing. Now we move to Saturday. We've got games all weekend. I think somebody put the NFL has waged an all-out war on Christmas, and I tend to agree. Oh, and in real time, the Rams went from, 205 down to minus 198. So sneaking a little bit more. Yeah, and then plus 170 down to plus 164 for the Saints. So a little bit of movement in the Saints' favor all of a sudden. Bengals Steelers kicks us off on Saturday, though. We get Mason Rudolph hosting Jake Browning, who will be making his first start at Heinz Field. I will still call it Heinz Field. I don't care what anybody says or what the sponsorship says on the outside of that building. The Steelers are home dogs plus 110 on the money line. Bengals are minus 130 favorites, and the Bengals are 2-point favorites here on the road in the Berg. Ooh, interesting. Although I agree with Mason Rudolph under center for the Steelers. On the Steelers side, here in the playoffs, bro, there's nobody I'd feel comfortable starting. Not a single player. Over-under's only 37 as well. So short week for the Steelers. Mason Rudolph coming in. Vibes are horrible with Pickens. Didn't want to block, so you didn't want to have a Tank Dell situation. Please, man. There's no way they can roll Pickens out this week, right? Like, I feel like they can't play him. If they do, it's gonna be limited. I don't know. Jalen Warren said he would have blocked for Pickens. No, hell no. No, not a Steeler. Not Najee, not Warren, nobody. And if I'm wrong on a Steeler has a big day, whoop-de-doo. I'm happy to miss out on that. That's fine. On the Bengals side, this is where my Jake Browning infatuation comes to an end, at least as far as thinking he'll be in that last couple weeks. Figured, yeah, low-end QB1, high-end QB2. Here, no. He'll be mid to low QB2 range, I think. No Jamar Chase out there for the Bengals either. I think this will be a very heavy Joe Mixon game, and that's really where I'd lean on it. Chase Brown, if he gets a big play, great, but the usage isn't really there for me to feel comfortable, so I would not be rolling out Brown. I think I'd still roll T. Higgins out there, though, with little concern. But yeah, Joe Mixon and T. Higgins are really the only two players in this entire game that I have any interest in leaving any amount of my playoff fate up to. So that's where I'm at with that. And we move back here to Southern California, the Los Angeles Chargers. Easton Stick. I played hockey growing up. I had an Easton Stick. It was always Easton. Had to be Easton. Versus the Buffalo Bills, who are overwhelming, disgusting favorites on the money line. Minus 850 and 11.5-point favorites. So Chargers are 11.5-point home dogs. Deservedly so. I don't really need to recap what happened to them against the Raiders last week. It resulted in Brandon Staley finally getting fired. But man, this team has nothing right now. Keenan Allen still hasn't practiced the last 2 days. After missing last week, so he's still hasn't returned to practice. It's a concern. It really is. Big concern. Oh man. So I don't know what to do. It really makes me concerned about Austin Eckler. It's really a big problem. And I have to rely on Eckler. So I don't know how to really read the Chargers. I think with Eckler, he's still going to be a top 20 running back, I think, this week. So I'm still going to put him out there. But man, it hurts not to feel good about it. So from the Chargers side, strictly Austin Eckler. Keenan Allen, if he does play, I will play him. I'm not benching Keenan Allen no matter what. On the Buffalo Bills side, obviously Josh Allen. James Cook has earned his way into the every week starter status. So James Cook, absolutely roll out there. I understand it's been quite rough with Stephon Diggs, but I will never bench Stephon Diggs, especially in any game where Josh Allen is the quarterback throwing him the ball. Staying away from Gabe Davis, and Dalton Kincaid has really fallen off a cliff. Not done much since Joe Brady. Or not, I wouldn't say not done much since Joe Brady's taken over, because it's been the last 2-3 weeks, not much from Kincaid. So really, I'm out on Kincaid for this matchup. So give me Allen, give me Cook, give me Diggs. No on Davis, even though there's a great chance Davis will do something here. But in his 0 or 20-point options that he gives you, I am not willing to risk the goose egg here. So get that out of here. No chance that I would start Gabe Davis in this game. Watch him go for 102 on 3 catches, though, easily. Asshole. Now we move to Christmas Eve, and this is where it gets a bit busier. We start with an NFC North showdown. Nick Mullins and the Minnesota Vikings hosting Jared Goff and the Detroit Lions. The Lions are big road favorites, minus 175. Vikings plus 145. Home dogs, and 3 points for the Lions on the spread. Over under 47 points will be scored. The Detroit Lion defense really hasn't been up to snuff in the last 5-6 weeks, especially the pass defense. Minnesota Vikings, on the other hand, man, my early season perceptions were throwing me off for a good minute because they've really been a really strong defense in the last several weeks. Brian Flores has this unit humming, really in all areas. But the Lions' offense got back on track last week in a big way. Their rushing attack is still something you cannot ignore. And Jared Goff, after a 5-touchdown performance and then traveling to another indoor venue, you have to feel good about where Jared Goff's at. So, on the Viking side, Nick Mullins, no. Justin Jefferson, no matter what. Jordan Addison, I'm going to pass on this week. He's flex worthy, but I'm hoping that if you're at this stage, you have a better option than Jordan Addison to throw out in your playoff matchup. I mean, I think he's going to be a mid-tier, like, wide receiver 3 this week in all likelihood, but not the guy most juiced to throw out there. TJ Hawkinson, absolutely. And then there's Ty Chandler, who, honestly, I understand what happened last week. I'm not counting on a repeat performance. I think this game's going to really flow through the air for Minnesota. So I'm going to pass on Ty Chandler this week. On the Lions side, I would be comfortable with Jared Goff. Again, low-end QB1. Actually, no, not low-end QB1. High-end QB2. I'd probably just barely rather start Stafford over him. Both the running backs, obviously, Gibson Montgomery, no sweat. Amon-Ra St. Brown, absolutely. The Sun God is in there weekly. And Sam Laporta, no doubter. So those are all the guys you want to throw in there. And I would avoid these secondary receiving options for the Lions, such as Josh Reynolds. Panthers and Packers. Oof. Panthers, especially in a sad state of affairs, although they did get their second win this week, so good for them. And the Packers, coming off a real rough defeat at home against Tampa Bay and Baker Mayfield, who was the first quarterback and only quarterback besides Aaron Rodgers to go in and post a perfect passer rating performance in a game at Lambeau Field. So quite impressive there from Baker. Goff or Fields? Well, we haven't quite gotten to the Bears, but long and short of it would be Fields for me this week. Season, what's good, baby? Glad to see you in here. The grind never stops with you, Season. That's why I know you're going to end up an elite fantasy player here in the very near future. But yeah, back to Panthers and Packers. So Panthers, just zero. I will not rest any playoff hopes in any individual Panthers player. Not a shot. On the Packers side, if Aaron Jones is good to go and they're not discussing a limited workload for him, I would throw Aaron Jones in there. No question. Jordan Love, mid QB2 this week, I think. So in a desperation spot, if that's the guy you have, you're okay. But if you're still in the playoffs, you probably don't even have Jordan Love, so I'm not going to worry too much about that. Oh, and I failed to mention all the numbers here. Packers minus 225 favorites, 5-point favorites. Panthers are plus 185. Home dogs, and the over-under is only 36.5 points. The receiver situation is a bit of a mess. Health is questionable for a lot of that group. Really, Jaden Reed, if he's good health-wise, is the only guy I'm looking to ride from that group, though. Dobbs has started to fall back a little. I don't know if I'm ready to commit to Dontavian Wicks here in the playoffs. And Christian Watson probably isn't going to play. Even if he does, I'm not going to trust it. So give me Reed, assuming he's good to go. Nope, not even Chuba. Zero interest. Not in the playoffs, man. I'm not riding that. Packers aren't particularly good against the run, and through some volume he'll get there. But I mean, if he doesn't score a touchdown, it's going to be, 9 points. I'm fine. I feel like I can take a shot at least at better upside if I'm going to roll out a questionable running back here in the playoffs. Chuba, Elliott, or Warren? Frankly, from that group, it's going to be Elliott. Ramondre is still expected to be out, at least to my knowledge, as of now. So, assuming Ramondre remains out against Denver, absolutely give me Zeke against the Broncos all day. Worst run defense in football, the Broncos. And Elliott's going to keep getting fed. Jalen Warren, yeah, I'd start Warren over Chuba. Chuba would be last on my list there. He's probably the one with the most guaranteed path to volume, but that Panthers offense is a disaster. There's just no way I can put my playoff fate in the hands of any of those guys. Just no chance. That's a big factor here at this point. Maybe it's cause for overthinking, but unless you really need, you're going up against a super team as your playoff opponent, man, I'm a little less willing to take some of those swings, some of those risks that aren't necessary in my mind. I'm not saying play conservative, but there's no real upside with Chuba. So if you are going to play a lesser running back, you need one that has a chance to really pop, give you 20. Chuba's not that. So that's where we leave Panthers and Packers. Now we move to Houston, where CJ Stroud is going to miss his second consecutive game with concussion. Unfortunately, sounds serious for him. Light sensitivity continues. Prayers up for CJ. Hope he is all right. Houston plus 124 home dogs because of this. Cleveland Brown, led by Joe Flacco, are minus 148 money line favorites and 2.5-point favorites on the spread. Over under is 40, which not a bad total for this game. I don't think so. Brian Robinson over Elliott if he plays. No, I'd rather have Elliott. The Commanders are also a disaster right now. Just abject disaster. B-Rob over Chuba and Warren, though. Yeah, I think. But not over Elliott. Elliott's like my clear favorite of any of those guys. So Joe Flacco leads the Browns into Houston. And yeah, with 40 points, that's a fair number there. But we'll start with the Texans. Case Keenum getting his his start. I guess he didn't start the previous game. Davis Mills did. Devin Singletary, I don't hate in this matchup. I would play Singletary over also all of these running backs that Rasta has been asking about, with the exception of Zeke. I would play Zeke over him. But otherwise, yeah, no, I'd play Singletary over Chuba, over Warren, and over B-Rob. No question for me. The receivers, it's hard to say. We don't know the Nico Collins status as of now. If Collins is in there, I'd probably lean his way. If not, I think I'd be all right trying to put Noah Brown out there this week. Probably not looking to play Dalton Schultz. And then on the Brown side, Joe Flacco, I think the volume's going to be there again. So he's a guy to actually probably play right around the Stafford Goff range. Between the three of them, I'd probably rank them Flacco, Stafford, Goff. That's the way I'd go. Jerome Ford, I'd be okay playing here. Don't love it. He'll be, I think, low RB2, that 20 to 24 range. Receiving wise, Njoku, absolutely starting him. Elijah Moore's okay if you really just need floor. If you need more upside, I would look elsewhere. Amari Cooper, absolutely starting. No questions there. And before we move on to Colts and Falcons, we'll talk to Ted here. What's up, Ted? Good to see you in here, my man. Skeleton crew because of injuries. Oh, man, don't we all? In a 14-team league, makes it even worse. Depth is already tough enough. Losing guys in 14-teamers is very hard to manage. He does have the man CMC, but for my other running back, should I go Brian Robinson or Gibson if he's out, Zach Moss or Aaron Jones? Leaning Jones if he plays, and that is also where I would lean. Zach Moss, I would avoid, as it does look like Jonathan Taylor is going to be making his return this week, as we'll discuss here in just a second with the Colts-Falcons matchup. And then, so yeah, I'd go Jones and then B-Rob. I guess if Gibson's your best option, if Robinson goes, then yeah, Gibson. Moss would be last on the list if Taylor is active. If Taylor's inactive still, also keep an eye on Moss because, no, he should be fine. They did come out and say he was fine. So, yeah, Moss would be the top of the list if Taylor is somehow out, but bottom of the list since it does look like Taylor will return. So Colts and Falcons. Falcons are now the favorites in this matchup following the reinsertion of Taylor Heineke into the lineup, replacing the bum Desmond Ridder. Unfortunately, Arthur Smith is still the head coach of the Falcons, so I don't know how much difference that's going to make. But they are minus 118 home favorites and minus 1 favorites on the spread. Over-under is 44.5 points. So with the Falcons, honestly, there are much worse options than Heineke going to roll out there in this spot. Indy is a great matchup for quarterbacks. And Taylor is just kind of a YOLO guy. If he just decides to be chucking it to London and Pitts and kind of gives the middle finger to Smith and whatever the hell he calls, what if he just starts throwing the ball around? Hey. I could see it happen. And I mean, it's not like we haven't seen big games even with Smith calling plays here, but boy, you could do worse. So I'd have him right behind, like if you need a desperate last minute pickup so you don't have a guy like Flacco or Goff or Stafford, then right behind him I'd be more than okay here with Heineke. And same goes for Minshew in this particular game. I know it's hard to trust anybody here, but I will play the Falcons players here. Bijan, yes. London, yes. Kyle Pitts, like fringe, man. I'd have him like right at the end of tight end 1 territory, probably. You're just guessing on touchdowns after the top group anyway. So if you have him, I'm okay playing him this week if you don't have one of the other top guys. On the Colts side, Minshew, yeah. Desperation, hell yeah. Go for it. Jonathan Taylor, no fear putting him in here in his first week back if he's in there. If not, I'm happy to roll with Moss as well. He'll get plenty of work. Michael Pittman, keep an eye on his health. Not really sure if he's going to go. I think he will, but still something to keep an eye on. Pierce, no. So Pittman, if he goes, also comfortable with. So really just those core 3. Minshew, Pittman if he goes, and whichever running back will be making the start. And before we get back into these other games, got some other questions. Anthony, pick 3. Cup, Puka, Cooper, and Brown. Cup, Puka, and Cooper. Not No Brown. No Brown is if you don't have better options, you have better options. Ted also has DeAndre Hopkins, but for his other receivers, should he go still Beckham or Rashid Shaheed? Thanks for your input. Full disclosure, I'm a 49ers fan, so I'm not going to tell you to play Odell Beckham against my boys on Monday. Not at all. Shaheed. And I sneakily like Shaheed to get a bomb. I mean, he's going to need to catch a long one tomorrow to pay off, but I think it's going to happen. I really do. So Rashid would be my answer there. But you're really just taking a gamble for a touchdown here. And Rashid, if he gets one, it's going to be a much longer touchdown. Bryce got a question. All right, Bryce, what you got, man? And welcome to the boardroom, Bryce. Facing CMC, Amon-Ra, AJ, and Rashad White. I assume AJ is AJ Brown. You're facing a very stacked team, my man. First of all, before you get to the rest of your question, good luck. And I'll keep an eye out for your question. I'm going to start hitting this next game while you type that in there. So we've got the Tennessee Titans, Will Levis, hosting what should be Geno Smith and the Seattle Seahawks. Seahawks will come in as minus 135 road favorites. Titans plus 114 home dogs. 2.5 points on the spread favors the Seahawks, and over-under is 42. On the Titans end, Levis, no. Pass. Low-end guy. Can't trust Henry, but he'll still get enough carries that you also can't really trust Spears. Spears won't get enough volume, even though it'll likely be much more efficient. Hopkins, I am okay to play in this matchup. Little issue, but that's truly it. DeAndre Hopkins is the only Tennessee Titan that I would play in this semifinal matchup here against the Seahawks, and he should be able to do work against that secondary, regardless of who they throw on him. On the Seahawks side, this is a very nice matchup against Tennessee. If Geno's back, honestly, I have Geno as a low-end QB1 this week if he's back. It's a juicy passing matchup every time. And he has DK and Lockett and Jackson Smith and Jigma, who's coming into form. He'll have a very nice day if he's out there starting. And on that note, I would start all three of the Seahawks receivers. Not all three are going to have big days, but I would be willing to take my shots with any of them. Obviously, if you have DK and Lockett, you're going to start them. But if you're a person who drafted JSN a little later, picked him up on waivers after everybody had given up on him for the year, I'd be willing to flex him here against the Titans. Seahawks are on a big emotional high after this last win. And like I said, JSN's really looking much better of late. Still not a ton of volume, but this is a very soft matchup for him. I think the Seahawks are going to do work on the Titans. I really am. I know the Titans just beat the Dolphins, but or no. But then they came back and lost to Houston. So, yeah, I think the Seahawks are going to really handle business here. All right, Ted has Shaheed starting. Hope he has a big game. Yeah, Odell has burned me a lot in the recent years on a particular dynasty team I haven't been able to move him, so, All right, Bryce's question. 2 running backs, 2 receivers, 1 flex. Options are Adams, Ayuk, Amari, Aaron Jones, Kenneth Walker, Chuba Hubbard, and Monty. Adams and Ayuk at receiver, no doubt. At running back, Montgomery. And in this matchup, Aaron Jones, if he's healthy, is where I'd go. If Jones is not healthy, I would go Walker. And then on the flex, that will... Are you full PPR? Because if you are, Amari Cooper, if it's half PPR or lower, it will depend on the health of Aaron Jones. If Jones goes and it's half PPR, I would go Kenneth Walker over Amari Cooper. But if Aaron Jones is not healthy, then, or if it's full PPR, then Amari Cooper. Hubbard is basically the guy I'd be trying to leave out here. And then Dak or Mahomes. Oh, shoot, the Cowboys. And who do the Chiefs have this week? The Raiders? Nah, Mahomes. I know it sounds wild, but give me Mahomes at home against the Raiders, please. My injuries for the year, currently, Rodgers, Andrews, Michael Thomas, Dell Stroud, Aaron Jones, Brian Robinson, Moss. Dude, yeah, it's been an absolute bloodbath across the league this year. It's painful to look at some of the teams I have, although with some of the good teams, it's great to look and see what kind of good fortune I've had and not had to drop too many. But man, Herbert was one in particular that was crushing for me. And Keenan Allen this week took me out of a couple spots as well. So I'm with you, man, although not quite as brutal year long like a lot of these are. That is tough. Hall or Addison full PPR? Brees Hall. Give me Brees Hall. As long as Zach Wilson is back, which he should be. If it's Tim Boyle, Trevor Siemian, some nonsense like that, no. Brees Hall, if Zach Wilson starts. If Zach Wilson, for whatever reason, isn't able to make it back, then go Jordan Addison. Geno or Flacco? Baker or Flacco? Geno over Flacco. The Baker over Flacco is tough, though. Baker or Flacco. I'm leaning Baker, but not by a lot. But I would go Baker. Purdy or Mahomes? Oh, baby. Now you're messing with me. Honestly, for fantasy purposes, for this one, mm, I don't want to start a debate here because I do have a finite amount of time here and don't want the chat to be going nuts. But Purdy is the MVP. But for this week, I can't ignore Mahomes having the Raiders at home. Well, Purdy will be facing one of, if not the best defense in the league in Baltimore. Certainly by scoring average, they are the best defense in the league. So it's gonna be a heavyweight fight in San Francisco, or Santa Clara rather, between the 49ers and Ravens. So while I think Purdy's still gonna have a great game fantasy wise, I think Mahomes will outperform on Christmas Day. Nino, what up, dog? I don't think I've seen your name before, so welcome to the boardroom. Happy to have you here. What's up, man? Need a QB this week? Was Stroud out again? Yeah, right there with you. Stafford, Flacco, and Browning. I mentioned earlier I had Flacco just barely edging Stafford. So Flacco would be my choice here. I have Browning a little bit. So my order would be Flacco, Stafford, then Browning. Flacco and Stafford like back to back for me. And then Browning's more like that mid-range QB2 this week, like QB 16, 17, 18. He's going to fall somewhere in there. I have it Flacco and Baker, but waiting to see how Gino does this week. That's assuming Gino does have that clean bill of health going into next week, but I cannot ignore the matchup that he has against Tennessee. I think he is going to do work through the air. I think Flacco is going to probably chuck the ball 40 plus times again too against Houston, but give me the game there that also has a couple more points there in the over under. It's the Titans are a pass funnel. It's going to have to be all Gino and DK and Lockett and JSN. I think it's going to be more of a down day for Kenneth Walker. Hey, you got it, Nino. I appreciate you. Thank you for coming into the show. Anytime, man. And good luck. This is the time to win. Hope you come away victorious and move on to the Shiva Bowl, as we'll call it for now. What is absolutely not on the level of a Shiva Bowl is this next matchup, which is the New York Jets versus the Washington Commanders. They host. The Jets are minus 166 favorites, which does tell me Wilson is going to be in the lineup. Breece Hall and Garrett Wilson. With Wilson in the lineup, I am comfortable starting every week and would have zero hesitation to do so here in this matchup. On the Commanders side, though, you might need to use Brian Robinson just because of the availability of running backs. Otherwise, though, Jets pass defense is tremendous. This game only has an over-under of 37. I'm probably still thinking the under. I am not willing to put my eggs in the basket of any of the receivers, nor Sam Howell with how terrible he's been lately as well. So no Commanders, just Breece Hall, just Garrett Wilson. We'll say CMC, Ted. That's what we'll go. McCaffrey or CMC? CMC is more fun. We'll go with that. Top tier show indeed. Season. Top tier show indeed. If you're a football fan and a fantasy football fan, the league is number one. Also, if you just love football, go watch Blue Mountain State. If you have Amazon Prime, you can find it there. Blue Mountain State is one of the great and more underrated shows because it was buried late night on like Spike TV back in the day, but it is top notch. So especially if you're a male between the ages of like 12 and 40, you will find Blue Mountain State wonderful. I'm gonna have to, you know what? Nobody has ever told me that, but we're gonna do something here, Ted, because why not? Alex Honnold, the rock climber. All right, we're gonna see if that's accurate. I don't know if that's actually him. Oh no, it does. It looks like him. Yeah, based on the rules. All right. Let's see. Although now I'm hella small compared to him, but But yeah, to your screen on the right, Alex Honnold. Here's me. Yeah, I actually see it, but we got to slap a mustache on this guy. All right, back to it. Back to it. So now that we're past that disaster of a game with Jets and Commanders, we can get to Baker Mayfield, the Tampa Bay Fighting Baker Mayfield, hosting Trevor Lawrence, possibly if he clears concussion protocol down in Tampa. So the Jacksonville Jaguars are minus 102 underdogs. Buccaneers minus 118 favorites at home, 1 point favorites at home, over under of 42.5 points. Not Ted. I have big ass ears. So that part is actually pretty accurate between me and him. So I do like Tampa if Trevor goes or doesn't go, obviously. I do like Baker in this matchup. I love Evans and Godwin. I know Rashad White has been great of late, and I mean, I can't advocate for benching him, but I would say this is not going to be a blow up spot for him. Although, I take that back. Jacksonville gives up a lot of receptions to running backs. I gotta remember that. So I should kind of love the big four here for Tampa. I would start Baker. Low end QB1. Low end QB1. Probably right there, like QB12. Rashad White, yes. Godwin and Evans, both, yes. Jacksonville. This is highly dependent on whether or not Trevor Lawrence goes. Even if Trevor Lawrence goes, I'm actually not going to play him in this matchup because he hasn't really been worthy of starting in your fantasy lineups most of the year. He hasn't been very good. Travis Etienne, every week, yes. Evan Ingram, even if Beathard starts, yes. The receivers, if Lawrence goes, I would be willing to roll the dice with Ridley. If it's Beathard, I would not play Ridley. It's that simple there. And that's where we'll leave that matchup. Not a ton to it. That's pretty straightforward. I don't know who Alex is. I got to admit, I can't say I know a whole lot about climbers. I'm afraid of heights, so I'm not a big climber so much. Rappelling one time, one of the freakiest things ever. Yeah, going down the side of a huge cliff, rappelling when you are afraid of heights is not a great experience. Didn't exactly help cure that fear either. So, oh, he climbs without the rope safety or two. See, that's what I'm saying. He's one of those free climbers. I mean, it's badass. Good for him, but you have fun flirting with death, my guy. That's on you, Alex. You have a good time. Hey, no. You know what? This is a fantasy show, but you know what? And you guys tell me this. I'm going to tell you, my favorite shows that I listen to, that I'm a consumer of, I love when the hosts mix in a little bit of like other talk, a little bit of sometimes the occasional personal stories, go off on some other tangent. Maybe they're talking about a TV show, a song, music, something. Now, not letting it dominate the conversation, but it's nice to break it up. God, man, if you're consuming fantasy content like this, that tells me that obviously you're reading and watching a lot more than me, which means you're consuming statistics at a rate for fun that is weird, frankly, for all of us. I do it too, so I'm also in that. So it's nice to break up all the numbers talking. Oh, this guy's great, this guy's trash. Oh, match up this, match up that, and just have a little fun. Part of it is just enjoying yourself. I always try to mention this as often as I can on the show, but the whole point of fantasy football, truly, apart from just beating your friends and taking their money, is to have fun, and that part is fun. So the show should be fun too. It's okay to talk about things. Hey, if I look like a badass climber, that's sick. You know who I normally get? I get two. Now, when I don't have the mustache, I get Jim Carrey a lot. But with this mustache, apparently I look like some dad cop from the Twilight movies. I've never seen Twilight. I did Google the guy once though, and it's hauntingly accurate. So, yeah. Hey, I will take being told I look like a badass free climber. That's sick. Yeah, my guy. Heights suck. There's no reason to be up in the air. We can't fly. There's a reason we're not up there. Airplanes is about the only thing I can handle. All right, we're not down to the final three because Monday is stacked, Christmas, but the final three games on Sunday. So the final two here in the afternoon. This is a marquee matchup. The Miami Dolphins are hosting them boys from Dallas. Dolphins are slight favorites, minus 120 on the money line, even money underdogs for the Cowboys. Dolphins minus 1.5 point favorites on the spread, and the over under is 50. Woo! That'd be a lot of points in this game. And I agree with Vegas in that regard. And this is kind of one of those start everybody games. The Dallas defense will not scare me away at all from. Oh my God. It will not scare me away at all from starting Hill if he goes, or Waddle, or Mostert, or Achan. All of them can go to a fringe guy. Fantasy wise, considering that he leads the league in passing yards, fantasy wise, it's been a little underwhelming. So I'm happy with all those guys, and obviously no tight end that you're going to start for Miami. And on the Dallas side, Dak was terrible last week against Buffalo, but the Dolphins are not that same challenge. And while I do think the Cowboys will, actually, I don't think they're gonna. I want to say they're gonna lose this game. I think they're gonna win. So Dak is a top fantasy option. So I'm throwing Dak out there, throwing CD Lamb out there with zero hesitation. Tony Pollard, I'm still putting out there, no problem. He's been much better of late, anyways, apart from last week. And I would be okay putting Brandon Cooks in there if you need to. I probably in that Jordan Addison range, that mid to low wide receiver 3, but I do think he will be in that top 36 and very, very startable, around that wide receiver 30 range. Certainly more than flex worthy. Kyle says CMC is the MVP and is incorrect. CMC is the best player in the league and having the best season of anybody, but he is not the MVP. Ted Nasty, Dallas is going to whoop the Finns. They just got punked last week, bounced back game, I think, but who knows? I do think Dallas is going to win too. Miami has not beaten a winning team in almost a year and a half. So until they do it, I will pick the winning teams that go up against them. Lockett or Ridley? Lockett, regardless. And I'm not even considering Ridley if Lawrence doesn't go. So yeah, on the Dallas side, start most of those players too. And Ferguson. I would play Jake Ferguson in this matchup with no hesitation. So start everybody. Now we get to the opposite of a marquee matchup here with the Bears hosting the Cardinals. The Bears are big favorites, minus 205 on the money line, 4-point favorites on the spread, and an over-under of 43. Sneaky. I like Fields. I think he'll be a low QB1, around QB 10-ish. I think he's going to certainly get there against Arizona. I think he'll have a nice rushing total, probably rushing touchdown. It's going to be a great game for DJ Moore. I'm still avoiding that backfield at all costs. So with the Bears every week, it's DJ Moore, yes, and then maybe Cole Kmet, maybe Justin Fields. In this case, it's yes, Justin Fields, no Cole Kmet. Pass. On the Arizona side, basically the questions every week are yes or no to Kyler and yes or no to McBride. And it's not even a question with McBride anymore. He's an every week yes. So yes to Trey McBride, no to Kyler Murray. Well, I don't want to say no. There's so many guys that I have are in that same bucket this week. And I think there's a good chance he ends up as a QB1 this week. But I don't feel comfortable with that thought. So I guess is my way of saying, if you're in the playoffs and you're rostering Kyler Murray, you probably got there because you've had a better quarterback most of the season, and I would almost certainly ride with whoever helped get you there beyond Kyler. And Superflex, obviously, you can play him, but that's not what we're here to discuss. Ted lives in Chicago. Unfortunately, a Bears fan by default. They are so bad, but going in with another number one pick that's either going to get you Caleb Williams or a massive haul to really build that roster. So either way, you win, and I think things are on the up for Chicago following this, as long as they don't somehow fumble the trade if they do decide to trade the pick. They shouldn't trade the pick. They should just draft Caleb Williams and have Caleb Williams, and that will solve a lot of problems. Hopefully they don't make the mistake of not taking Caleb. And Sunday Night Football, Denver Broncos in the Mile High City host Bailey Zappi and the New England Patriots. Zappi Christmas Eve. Broncos are heavy favorites, minus 278 on the money line, 6.5 point favorites on the spread, but the over-under is only 34.5. Very low. I'm actually probably need to check into the weather. I wonder if it's going to be quite white Christmas up there in the Rockies. I'm sure it will be, but also not a very explosive offense with Denver, and the Patriots obviously are not that as well. So fantasy-wise, this is really a lackluster matchup so far as the lowest over-under on the slate. There's really nothing here especially attractive. I wouldn't be looking to start Russ here. Javonte maybe, but New England has a nice rush defense. Normally I say Sutton, but not again. I mean, I wouldn't be comfortable with any of those players, and on the Patriots, only Zeke. I think Zeke is the only player that I would feel good about inserting into a lineup here. Maybe Hunter Henry if you're desperate at tight end, and that's where you want to take your touchdown shot. But that's maybe. But Zeke will be a top 24 running back this week, so I would play him. Need to trade Fields, take Williams, and draft about 5 stud offensive linemen in a row moving forward. That would be great. Every pick, yeah, absolutely. And you can hit on offensive linemen later on, so take some chances there. But yeah, build that O-line. We know that is honestly been a big stunt to the development of Fields, not having an O-line. So don't put Caleb in that same situation. Now we move to Christmas morning, where fans in Kansas City will wake up to go to Arrowhead and see the Chiefs take on the Raiders. Chiefs are overwhelming favorites, minus 520 on the money line, minus 10 on the spread. Over-under is 41. On the Chiefs side, curious if Pacheco will return. I don't think he's going to be back yet, though. I'm going to double check that here while we're here. But Mahomes, I feel very good about having a plus game in this spot. I understand it hasn't been there so much with Kelsey of late, but I'm never benching Travis Kelsey. It's quite simple in that regard. Pacheco is expected to return this week, so I would start Isaiah Pacheco, and I would be willing to start Rashee Rice in this matchup. On the Raiders side, see if Josh Jacobs is going to be back, because that's another one I haven't noticed an update on. He's trending towards playing, so I would play Jacobs, and I would play Adams, and that's it. And that will pretty much always be the case with the Raiders, at least for the rest of the year. There's nobody else. Giants and Eagles. We get an NFC East showdown here in the Northeast on Christmas, where the Eagles are even bigger favorites than the Chiefs are over the Raiders. The Eagles are minus 600 favorites over Tommy Cutlets and the Giants. 12-point favorites on the spread, and the over-under is 42.5 points. And I, unfortunately, lean very much this way also. So I will start Hurts, I will start Swift, I will start A.J. Brown, I will start Dallas Goedert, and I will start Devontae Smith. All of the Eagles' offensive skill players. On the Giants side, 2 guys, Barkley and Waller, and that's it. No DeVito, none of the receivers. And that brings us to the crown jewel of NFL's Week 16 of Christmas Day and of the NFL season, regular season, that is. And that is the San Francisco 49ers hosting Lamar Jackson and the Baltimore Ravens. This is the heavyweight fight we need. These are the only 2 teams that can even be mentioned in the discussion for best team in the NFL. And frankly, I think there's really only one team, but we will find out for sure when this game takes place. The Niners are big favorites, minus 230 on the money line, plus 190 for Baltimore. 49ers are minus 5 on the spread, and the over-under is 47. 5 seems kind of generous for the Niners, though. I think the Ravens are going to give them a hell of a fight. The Ravens are a very good team, need to be respected, regardless of how good the San Francisco 49ers are. This is a game where I would try to find a better option. Well, you can't say try. I hate the way I phrase this because there's no, making replacements at this point for the most part, apart from what's on waivers. So Purdy is better than anything on waivers, but if he's a guy you've been kind of platooning with another higher end quarterback, another guy may be the better way to go here up against the very stout Ravens defense. Never sitting CMC, never sitting Debo or Ayuk or George Kittle either. So regardless of the tough matchup, even though all these guys have kind of been eaten of late, somebody here is going to fall short. But unlike, say, the Steelers, somebody could pop. I'm okay missing out. I would not be okay if I missed out by not inserting one of the players from the best offense in the league by far. So start all your Niners, including Purdy, unless you have a higher end guy you can go with. And it actually might even be Lamar, because Lamar, you might have drafted Lamar early, Brock late. Brock has far outperformed Lamar in fantasy and in real life for this season anyway. So, but this is a game where, for fantasy purposes, I would play Lamar instead. So that's the kind of situation I mean. When I say look for somebody, if you have somebody else in your roster that could fill in. And on the Ravens side, yeah, starting Lamar all day, never sit him, even against the 49ers. I would start Gus Edwards as well. The rush defense for the Niners is not particularly great. I think we're 18th against the run. It's okay. So I wouldn't be afraid to start Gus Edwards. He'll probably score, as he is one to do, especially now with the Keaton Mitchell injury. They're going to have to rely on Edwards and Justice Hill even more. Isaiah Likely and the receivers, though. Likely is 50-50 because of the state of the tight end position, but I tend not to try to start tight ends that are going to be going up against Fred Warner. So I would take my chances elsewhere. I would avoid Likely, and I'm absolutely avoiding the crop of receivers, especially Beckham and Bateman. Want no part of them. Flowers is a guy that I think might give you a floor in PPR, and that's it. I do think volume-wise, he'll get the most from the receivers, and he'll probably end up with 4 to 6 catches. So Flowers would be the manufactured touch guy, I think, in this matchup when they're going to have to get a little tricky as well. Try and catch the 49ers here off guard. So that's the only passing option that I'd be looking for on the Baltimore side of the ball. And before we get out of here, we will finish up this chat. Fields likes to lather his hands in butter before the game. While I'm not the biggest believer in Fields, I kind of feel bad for him, man. I feel like he has tried to give it all for Chicago and just takes a beating. And he's had some nice highs, but the lows are so rough. I feel bad for the Chicago fan, too, though. It's just a lot of years of bad football. It sucks. McKinnon on my bench. If Pacheco sits, I'm tempted to play McKinnon. Yeah, if Pacheco sits, I would find a way to squeeze McKinnon in the lineup if I could. But it looks like Pacheco's going to be good to go, so I wouldn't get your hopes up there. Giants have 0 chance of winning. Don't be sorry for hijacking the chat. Engagement is good. Let's talk. I want action. The more chat, the better, as far as I'm concerned. Some nights better than others for it because I don't want to run short on time necessarily. But no, man, just fill it up. Fill it up. Let's talk. Everybody talk. That's the whole point. We're not here to just. This isn't a classroom. It's a boardroom. Classroom. I'm not sitting up in here lecturing you. This isn't college. I'm not here to just talk at you for an hour. I'm here to talk with you. Give and take. That's what's beautiful about the boardroom. We talk. It's discussion. It's debate. It's encouraged. Cadillac asks, start 2, Adams at Kansas City, Cup versus New Orleans, Keenan versus Buffalo, Rice versus Las Vegas. If Keenan Allen is active, it's Keenan and, golly. All right, well, we'll start. If Keenan is not active, it's Adams and Cup. If Keenan is active, oh, man. It's still Adams and Cup. Ugh, I hate that. If you can only start 2, I would have to go Adams and Cup. since Keenan has Easton Stick. Not afraid to start Keenan necessarily, but you have two very much better options in front of him, which most people will not have that luxury. So in your case, Adams and Cup, no matter what, even if Keenan goes. Hey, you know what? I actually have a nice little collection of my holiday sweaters because I feel like got in front of the ugly sweater things coming back in a big way. Now they're all common again. I stopped buying them, but I got a nice few in there. But this one though is courtesy of my wife. We actually have like nice matching ones. Yeah, I know. Oh, but they're pretty dope. And I mean, how can you hate on Merry Christmas, you filthy animal? Man, it's possibly the most classic phrase in Christmas cinema history. Anthony says it all the time. Best dressed man in fantasy football. Not wrong. Appreciate it. If you could put one of the options at flex, unless you have some stud running back, then I would start Keenan over virtually any flex-worthy running back. And probably Rashee Rice, too. So I'd be happy to, but Keenan over Rice if Keenan is healthy. 2 RB, 2 receiver, 1 flex. Don't really know to go with RBs. Well, who are your running backs? I've got about 3 minutes left, so you can get it in there. We can bang out this question before I get out of here. Did cousin in our family league vultured likely off waivers after Andrews went down, so I went Kraft for a fluke game last. Oh, I think you mentioned that in the other Get Right chat. Yes. Yeah, I'd be okay rolling with Kraft again if Musgrave's out again, which I believe he is going to be. So, especially against the Panthers, yeah, I don't hate that at all. I mean, it's a touchdown gamble with most tight ends, and that's one I'd be willing to take. All right, Barkley at Philadelphia, Hall versus Washington, Walker at Tennessee, and White versus Jacksonville. So my top 2 there would be Breece Hall versus Washington and White versus Jacksonville. And I would probably put Barkley in the flex over either of those receivers, frankly. Walker is the odd man out here. So in terms of here, I would go Adams, Cup, Hall, White, and then the flex, Barkley. That's how I'm looking at that. Appreciate the question, Cadillac. Good luck. Let's win this. Now I got to get out of here for tonight. There's a good chance you will see me one more time before Christmas and before the games. So still to be finalized, but you should see me here on Friday in the Get Right Friday show with Classic Mike. Working on it. We'll get that finalized, but you should see me. So we'll get a little more detail, and we'll get obviously the thoughts of the man, Classic Mike. Sometimes work out some more thoughts and logic in that process as well. So stay tuned, stay locked in to Get Right. Final note here, of course, we're no longer using my previous code, and I'm no longer going to push that other picks site, scam site. Yeah. But we're also going to push Underdog Fantasy. So make sure that if you are not already signed up for Underdog, go there, sign up, use code GETRIGHT to get a 100% deposit or 100% deposit match on your first deposit up to $100. So deposit 100, get 200 to play with, and close out the rest of this regular season and playoffs strong, baby. All right. For the championship, Cadillac. All right. And if it's for money, especially, so go win that ship, go win that money. Hope you report back to us next week. Come back, let us know. And now, shoot, for the championship, I'm really going to be thinking about the advice I gave you even harder. I'm going to feel really guilty if I was wrong, but that is what I believe and what I would recommend. You have a great night as well, Ted. Good to see you. Let's go, Anthony. Let's go. So, thank you all for coming out once again to the Fantasy Boardroom. And this meeting of the Fantasy Boardroom is adjourned.
Wanted to write fantasy is the play. Marking nothing but I tune every Friday. Strategies provided.